Hi, welcome. My name's Karl O'Dell. I was head chef at Michelin Starred Texture restaurant. I was formerly at Petrus by Gordon Ramsay as well. These are the 3 courses that I'm going to cook for you, or with you, should I say. So this is ceviche made out of sea trout, coconut and lime leaf. This is a crudely carved duck, super crispy skin. We have some pickled cherries, butternut squash, mushroom and truffle puree. And here we have a very festive armagnac and prune soufflé with creme fraiche and lime. Right, so this is what's in your hamper pack. So I'm going to start with the first course, the starter. Here we have sea trout. It's going to be packed for you. Lemongrass, red chili, banana shallots, a lovely tin of coconut milk, avocado, lime, our squid ink crackers that are going to be pre-made for you. We've got a little bit of micro herbs, so coriander cress, micro lemon balm, just bring a little bit of elegance. Here we have a lime leaf oil, which I'm going to make for you. And we've got fresh coriander as well. That's for the starter. Moving on to the main. So obviously we have our duck breast, which are really amazing ducks that I always use at work. Bulb of garlic, rosemary, butternut squash, a little bit of truffle oil, mushrooms, Madeira, banana shallots again. We're going to send you a pouch of chicken stock ready-made, your pickled cherries, which we'll also send to you ready-made, and some cream. And for the dessert, for the soufflé, we're going to have your soufflé mix already made, your prune and armagnac mix. And we're also going to send you some creme fraiche as well. And we're also going to use a little bit of the lime to go on there as well. Right, so here at Banquist, we do provide you with 90% of what you need, but you will need a couple of things at home, which you've probably got knocking around in your cupboards anyway. So we have some olive oil, sunflower oil or vegetable oil, just a little bit to fry the cracker. I'm going to use Maldon sea salt, pepper in my nice cup, some castor sugar, fresh eggs, block of butter, you won't need all of it. Just standard pans, so frying pan, small saucepans for the purees, a little bit of plain flour, we're not going to use all of this, cling film, a grater, or I've got a microplane just to do a bit of zesting, a whisk, a tin opener, a sieve, mixing bowl, and a blender. If you haven't got a blender, you can use a potato masher or a stick blender or whatever you have really. And also we have 2 ramekins here for the soufflé molds. If you don't have these, you could probably use a coffee cup with a straight edge, or a little teacup, small metal bowl, or any sort of ramekin that kind of fits this this size. With the most time-consuming element, which is the mushroom puree. That way you can relax a little bit more when you're plating up your main. Okay, so what I want to do first, I'm just going to remove maybe 3 or 4 of the nice little mushrooms, and we're actually going to serve them raw when we plate up the main course later. So I'm going to put them aside, and then make sure your mushrooms are washed. Make sure your fingers are in before you start cutting, and then we're just going to thinly slice the mushrooms. Okay, that's enough. Right, I'm going to preheat my pan a little bit. So into the pan with a little bit of olive oil. Then we're going to add our mushrooms in. I'll take a little bit of Maldon sea salt. And a bit of pepper as well. Okay, we've had the mushrooms on now for about 3 or 4 minutes. So you can see they're starting to break down now. When they are starting to break down, we're going to add a little knob of butter. If you'd rather it be more healthy, or you're a bit emotional about butter, you can leave it out. But I'm a big fan still. Right, okay, so I've had this on for around 10 minutes now. As you can see, the mushrooms are getting nicely caramelized. We're actually getting nice colour on the bottom of the pan as well, which is what we want. Right, I'm happy now. The mushrooms are nicely roasted. So we're just going to deglaze the pan with a little bit of Madeira. We're already using Madeira in the sauce, so it's kind of part of the dish already. Right, so Madeira's in, deglazed. Now I'm just going to finish this with a little bit of cream. So, if you wanted to, you could just serve them like this. They're amazing, they're creamy. You've got the little bit of alcohol sweetness from that Madeira. Yeah, I'll be very happy to eat them like this. But we're gonna go a step further and we're gonna actually blend them into a puree. So, I'm just gonna go straight into the blender like that. Maybe a little bit more cream. And then stick them on and blend them till smooth. So, mushroom puree has been blended till smooth. I'm now going to remove that and decant it into a bowl. So what we need to do now is check the seasoning for the mushroom puree, and then we're going to add a little bit of truffle oil to that as well. So I'm actually quite happy with my one, surprisingly. So now I'm going to add my truffle oil. So you won't need a lot of truffle oil. It's extremely strong. Just gonna fold that in like that. So we're just gonna put a little bit of cling film over the top and put that aside for later. So cling film over the top. Try to put the cling film directly onto the puree rather than just over the top, or you may get a skin on your mushroom puree. Right, okay, first things first, we need to prep the duck. I'm going to show you a couple of little methods that we can do to improve the quality of the duck. So, skin side down on your chopping board. There's a little fillet here. You're just going to stick your knife through that and then pull to the side. Lift it up. Pull your knife down. We're going to put that to the side later for the sauce. All of the trimmings from the duck breast are going to be used to make the gravy later. So any bits of sinew, just push your knife through and come out. Then lift it up and trim it off. Here we have again, it's quite a thick piece. Push my knife through, again lift it up, trim it up, and there we go. We're going to cut that off. For the sides of the duck, you always trim your duck one way. So we never saw it like a piece of wood. You always cut the meat one way. And then hold the piece of meat that you're trimming off. Ideally, we would like to leave a little bit of fat around the outside. Because when we put it into the pan later on, the fat is gonna shrivel up a little bit. So if you trim it all off now, you end up actually scoring the meat in the pan rather than the actual fat. So I'm just gonna finish taking any bits of sinew off. So pretty happy with that. This is for our sauce. Now I'm gonna show you the next method. So we're gonna put this in the freezer for about 15 to 20 minutes. I just want the skin on the fat side to firm up, because once it's firm, we can then score it nice and neatly. If you try to do it now, you're going to get it all uneven. It's going to be all crooked. It's not going to look as sharp as it would after the method I'm going to show you. So what we're going to do is I'm going to cling film a plate. So the cling film is nice and flat. Now we're going to put skin side down onto that flat cling film. When you put this in the freezer, this will make sure you have a nice flat surface when you're actually cooking. So we're going to put that in the freezer like that for 20 minutes, and then I'm going to show you how to finish it off. Okay, now we're going to do our butternut squash spaghetti. Right, okay, so first thing we need to do we're going to remove the bottom part and put that aside for the sauce later on. Okay, now I'll just cut off the top. I would advise you use a serrated knife for this part. Rather than peel the skin, I'm actually going to peel it with a knife. Because if you look very carefully, when you just peel it, you leave on a layer of like white, like a white pith kind of thing, similar to what you would get on an orange. So we really want to actually take a little bit more off than you would with a peeler and go all around. Okay, now comes the complicated part. So we want to cut very slowly and very thin slices. When we get halfway through, you can flip it around, just trim off the side. Again, we'll put that aside for the sauce, and then you can carry on with your thin slices. Right, so I'm pretty happy with what I've got here for 2 people. I think that's more than enough. So, what I'm going to do is just turn it around again, put them in little piles. I'm going to trim off the side because I want mine to be quite neat. But you're more than welcome to leave it on. It's not a really, really important task. And then we're just going to go and cut the strips. We're just going to put that aside for later, and then later on we're going to pan roast that, okay? Okay, this is another element that we want to have ready before we start on the starters. This very time consuming. It's something that I would recommend you make in advance. This is the sauce for our Madeira gravy. So I've got my trimmings from the duck, trimmings from my squash, butter garlic, shallot, and rosemary. So first thing I'm going to do, a little bit of oil in the pan, and I'm going to roast off that trimming I've got from the duck. So, we have our meat nicely roasted, vegetables nicely roasted. As you can see, in the bottom of the pan, we have lots of colour from the meat. All that is flavour. So what we're going to do is, we're going to deglaze the pan as we did earlier with the mushroom. So we're going to add our Madeira now. Now, once we're at this stage, we can add the herbs. The reason I add the herbs now is because you don't want the flavour of roasted rosemary too much in the sauce at this stage. So I'm just going to add that in now, and that'll keep it nice and fresh. So, if you wanted to at this stage, you could actually add a little bit of flour if you wanted your sauce to be nice and thick. But some people like it thick, some people like it thin. Depends if you're from the north or the south. So I'm going to leave mine nice and thin because that's how I like it. But if you want it thicker, just add a little bit of flour to it. So the Madeira has evaporated now, and as you can see, the pan is now clean. So when we're at this stage, we're going to add our stock. So we've had it now up to the simmer for about 10 minutes. I'm pretty happy with this. So I'm going to remove it from the heat, and I'm just going to put it on the side to infuse and really soak up them duck flavors, all the aromats in there. We're just going to leave it like that. I'm going to prep the rest, and then I'm going to strain it later. Right, this is our coconut broth, which we're going to make for the ceviche. So first thing we need to do is pour the tin of coconut milk into the pan. This is super easy. We have fresh kaffir lime leaves, which I really love. They give an amazing flavor, especially fresh ones, which we are going to send you. So they're going to go in there. I'm just going to slice a whole red chili. So lemongrass. So ceviche is basically a fish that is cooked in lime juice. So it won't have any heat put into it. The acid from the lime will actually cook your fish. And I really like it served with a coconut. I think it's an amazing combination, especially for a little starter. Okay, we're just bringing the coconut to the boil. I'm going to add a little bit of salt into there. Now, I'm going to add some lime zest as well while it's on the stove. Give me something to do. I'm using a microplane, but you could use a grater, or if you wanted, you could even use lime peel as well. Coconut milk has now come to the boil. I'm going to remove that and let that infuse for about 5 minutes. So I've just removed my duck breast from the freezer after about 30 minutes. Depending on your freezer, you might need a little bit longer or a little bit less, but what we're looking for is that the fat is quite firm. The reason we want it quite firm is so we can score it nicely now, which I'm going to do. You just want to break into the skin. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to leave mine like that, nice and neat. Again, I'm going to store it. I'm going to store it on the skin side, because when we put it into the pan later on, we want the skin to be nice and flat in the pan. We don't want it to curl up around the outside or bend around. That way we're going to get a really nice crispy skin on the duck breast. Now we're going to put it into the fridge until we're ready to start on it a bit later. This has been on the side chilling for 5 minutes now. So I'm ready to add my lime juice. The reason I'm adding my lime juice now is because I want to keep that fresh lime juice flavor. If I add it when it's really hot, I'm going to lose that freshness. So that's the reason I'm adding it now. So just half your lime. Don't worry about the seeds or anything like that going in there. Okay, so we're just going to pass this through a sieve, and then we're going to put it in the fridge for later because we want to serve this ice cold. Right, I've had the sauce infusing for 30 minutes now, so I'm now ready to pass it off, so it's going to be ready for later. I'm going to put mine through a little sieve here, so just slowly, be careful you don't lose any juices. I'm just going to pass that through there. If you press it a little bit, you will get a little bit extra juice out of that. I'm very happy how this sauce is at the moment, but if you want to be extra chefy, or it's a very special occasion and you want your sauce to be crystal clear, you can use a cloth. So just a standard kitchen cloth, obviously one you haven't cleaned the bathroom with. Nice fresh one, and just pour your sauce through there and you'll remove any little bits of sediment, and then we're just going to pull it up and you just squeeze that a little bit and you'll get a nice clean gravy there. So we're going to move on now to the sea trout to prep it for the ceviche. So one thing we want to do is remove any of this white fat from the fish, which you can see here and here. And also we're going to take off the skin. We don't want to go really close into this skin because there is a lot of blood line on the back of it. So I'm just going to push my knife in like that and then slowly cut above the skin all the way along. So that's pretty good. That's kind of what we're looking for. So the skin you can discard it. Now I'm going to remove this. So this is called the bloodline. So just run your knife in, turn it around. Again, so you're kind of making like a V shape there to get that out. There we go. Just going to trim up that. The little bit of white sinew, again, trim it off. It's not very nice for this part. Okay, perfect, happy with that. Okay, so fish is nice and clean. Now we're ready to start making a ceviche. For the squid ink cracker, we're gonna warm up a little bit of vegetable oil. We're not going to shallow fry it, but we're not going to deep fry it either, so you just want a happy medium with that. We need to bring this up to a nice temperature. You will start to see a little bit of kind of smoke. You'll see the oil is really hot. When that happens, we're ready to fry the cracker. So I'm pretty sure the oil is hot enough, but I'm just going to check by taking a little bit of the black cracker to see if it's going to puff up. Yes, so I'm happy that's going to work. Now I'm going to do my bigger ones. So one at a time, just push them into the oil, and then they will puff up. They should puff up to around twice the size. Yeah, that's it. So I'll just leave them on the side to dry. Okay, start the ceviche. So I'm just going to cut that in half, put that to the side. We're just going to do it in rough dice. Doesn't have to be really neat. It's extremely rustic when it's prepared in Spain or Latin America. So that's going to go into the bowl. With that, we're going to do some red chili. So don't go crazy, maybe just a tail. Again, it's a personal preference. If you like it hot, you can add more. If you're not too keen on spicy food, you can add a bit less. Okay, that's going to go into there. A little bit of shallot. It's very classically done with red onion, but I want it not to be so strong in flavour with onion, so I'm going to use a bit of shallot instead. Nice and finely sliced. I think that's about enough for me. I'm going to put half an avocado in mine. So to remove the avocado, just get your spoon under the skin and it should pop out like so. I'm going to cut down here. Nice dice. I'm not going to add that in just yet. I'm going to mix it together because I don't want to smash the avocado up beforehand. So as I mentioned, the cooking process for the ceviche is by the acid of the lime. That's actually the cooking process. So there's no heat actually applied to this. It's an extremely healthy dish. It's very fresh. It's really nice with a a bottle of wine before you have a main meal. Okay, so I'm going to gently mix that together. Make sure I don't break up any fish. And then we're going to marinate that for 6 to 8 minutes. So I've made something really amazing for this ceviche dish, which I think brings another really interesting element to it. So I've made a lime leaf oil. So normally you only get lime leaves which are dry. So I've managed to source some fresh lime leaves. So, and I've made an oil out of them, which is quite interesting. So how it's made is, I blend together lime leaves and olive oil at 60 degrees for 8 minutes. Then I strain them through a cloth. I set them in the fridge overnight, and then I re-strain that again. And then what you end up with is this really amazing aromatic green oil. Right, so the sea trout's had about 6 minutes now. As you can see, the sea trout has actually changed color. So you're getting more of that white cooked effect already going on because of the lime juice. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to now add some chopped coriander into there. And I'm going to add my avocado now. A touch of olive oil. I'm going to very gently mix that together. Okay, just make sure you try before you serve it. So I definitely need some more salt in there. Okay, perfect. Right, so if you have one at home, I'm going to use a little pastry cutter just to get it nice and centered and not all over the place. And then we're going to carefully build up. We're not going to press down on it. We're just going to build it slowly. So it's quite nice if you can get like a little mountain effect. Now we're going to add our little micro cresses. So we've got micro lemon balm, which is one of my favorite herbs. It's really citrusy. Gives a quite a unique flavor to the dish. And a bit of coriander cress. Now I'm carefully going to remove my ring. Right, to finish, we just need to finish the sauce. So we have the coconut milk. Now I'm going to split the coconut milk with the lime leaf oil. So you have some super flavors in here. It's spicy, it's aromatic, and it works amazingly well with the fish. And then just going to pour that on the side there. And then the finishing touch is your black cracker on the top. Okay, there you have it. Sea trout ceviche, lime leaf oil, and spiced coconut. Okay, so the duck breast's been out of the fridge now for a good 5 minutes. I'm just going to stick it back onto the chopping board. I'm going to season it with Maldon sea salt quite generously, because we are going to lose a little bit in the pan. And then a very small amount of oil in your pan, almost nothing, because we will be using the fat from the duck's skin to cook the duck. Okay, so not on a high heat, on quite a low heat. So this should be quite a slow process. It should not be colouring the skin of a duck at this stage. Right, so very low heat for a good 8 to 10 minutes now. All the time, skin side down. You can just move it slightly every now and again, just to make sure it gets an even caramelization on the bottom. But I'm happy to leave this now in the pan. I'm not going to play with it, so you can go back and enjoy your glass of wine while you're waiting for your duck. Right, so as you can see, there's a lot of fat has come out of the duck skin itself, and the amount of color we have on the duck skin is that already. So this has been in the pan for 5 to 6 minutes. What I would like to do now, I'm just going to remove that oil out of the pan. I'm just going to use that. So with my 2 fingers on there, I'm just going to remove it. And then I'm going to carry on slowly crisping that skin up. I'm probably going to come back and have another look in about 3 minutes. So 3 minutes longer. Just going to flip it over a little bit. I'm only going to flip it over for about 30 seconds or so. Not too long. As you can see, the skin is starting to crisp up, but we do want to go a little bit more than that. So I'm just going to turn it back, and then I'm going to check it in another 2 minutes. So this is after another 3 minutes. As you can see, we are starting to get somewhere now. The skin really is starting to get nice and crispy, which is how we want it. Just going to baste it a little bit. I think that's probably going to need about another 3 minutes, and we're going to rest it. So back again on the skin side. In 3 minutes, we're going to take that out. Something else you can do when it comes out the pan, if you would like, is you can brush honey on it. You can put some spices on there. So Sichuan pepper's good, normal pepper, fennel seeds, coriander seeds, lavender. You could brush that on your skin if you wanted to give it a little bit more wow. Okay, right, happy with that. Nice crispy skin. So I'm just going to take it out and I'm going to rest it skin side up. You need to rest it for a good 5 to 8 minutes, depending on the size of your breast. And with the pan, with the oil in the pan, just come from the duck, we're actually going to do our squash spaghetti in there. So we're going to keep the flavors of the duck, all that in the squash as well. So squash into the pan, same pan as the duck. We don't want to over fry it and color it. So nice and low temperature. Also, I'm going to add a little bit of water into here as well, just to make sure it's not going to burn. And that's just going to help to steam it a little bit. Season with salt. And I am going to go with a little bit of pepper as well. And when it's nearly finished, I'm going to season it with coriander. But if you wanted to use something else, parsley, chervil, you could use whatever you like. So you can hear it now steaming the squash a bit. I wouldn't like it to go any higher than this. If you do need to cool the pan down, you can just add another spoonful of water into your pan. So you can see I'm not stirring it rapidly, breaking it all up. You have to be nice and gentle with it. Otherwise you're going to end up with another puree. Another spoonful of water inside. So we're nearly there. It's not going to take long. I reckon it's probably going to take another 1 to 2 minutes and we're going to be finished. I'm just going to start bringing my mushroom puree back to the heat now. The spaghetti's nearly done. And I'm also going to start warming up my gravy as well. We have the pickled cherries ready. And there we go. Just be very careful with your mushroom puree because it will catch. So heat it up on quite a low temperature, probably for 3 to 4 minutes. Okay, squash spaghetti. I'm very happy with this now. As you can see, it has got a little bit of bend on it. Very carefully, we're going to take it out and put it onto a plate or a chopping board until we're ready. I'm just going to chiffonade a little bit of, just a bit of coriander in there, a little bit of extra colour, a bit of extra flavour. Okay, I'm nearly ready to start plating up the main course now. So I'm just going to do a few raw mushroom slices. I think it's a really nice addition. And they're extremely nice when they're served with a little bit of olive oil. Okay, so what I'm looking for here on a duck is a nice crispy skin. So right here, mine's nice and crispy. I can hear it cracking. And also on the sides, it's nice and soft and tender. If it needs more, if you're not happy with how it is, you can put it in the oven for another couple of minutes. But when you put it in the oven, do not put it skin side down, because obviously your crispy skin will go soggy, because you might lose a bit of moisture from your duck breast. So first thing I'm going to do before I plate up, I've got my hot sauce. I'm just going to put my pickled cherries inside to the sauce. First of all, that's going to glaze up my cherries, and it's also going to give a nice sweet sour flavour to the sauce as well. Right, so mushroom puree, which we made earlier. I'm just going to put it on like that. You can put it on however you like. There's no law. Now, next thing I'm going to put on is my spaghetti. So you want to try and get a little bit of height on there. We don't want it all flat and looking too sad. Quite happy with that. So when you cut the duck, you always cut it skin side down. So I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to trim both ends because I want it to look nice and sharp. I'm also going to trim a little bit off the sides. You can leave it on, it's not a problem at all. When you're carving your meat, make sure you're not pushing your knife through. The knife should be pushing itself through. So we should be able to open that up and we have a perfect crispy duck. Super crispy skin and perfectly cooked in the center. So I'm going to go one like that. Very happy with that. Going to put some mushrooms on there as well. You can plate it up in different ways if you like. This is my choice. Let me check it's okay. Okay, cherries. I'm going to put them back on a chopping board. I'm going to put one on there. If you have any micro cress left earlier, your micro lemon balm, you can absolutely use it up on this dish. Citrus works amazing with the duck. Okay. A little bit of sauce. And that's it. Crudely carved duck, mushroom and truffle puree, butternut squash spaghetti, and pickled cherries. Okay, we enjoyed that lovely main course. Now we're going to move on to the very simple but very complicated dessert, depending on how you look at it. So, the first thing we need to do when prepping with the soufflés is to butter the molds. So I'm going to use a brush. It's just a normal paintbrush. You could probably find one around the house somewhere. Obviously make sure it's clean. If that's not available to you, you could use a little bit of kitchen towel, brush on the butter, or whatever else you can find, a bit of cloth. Well, you have to be creative. Okay, so Make sure butter is soft. I'm just going to brush around the bottom in a circular motion, and then I'm going to brush around the sides in that circular motion as well. When we're at this stage, then we're going to get the brush and we're just gently going to brush up, straight up on the sides. And we're going to do that all the way around. The idea behind this is that your souffle will rise nice and evenly, and you won't get a bit come up here or come up there. It should come up nice and even if you nail this part. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that one. So I'm just gonna, with my thumb, just gonna run my thumb around the top just to make sure it's nice and smooth. And then this will actually go into the fridge now for about 5 to 10 minutes while we do the egg whites. If you want to be adventurous, you could put some cocoa powder in here now, and then you could shake that out. Or if you wanted to use nuts, you could use pistachio nuts, hazelnuts. You just put them in now, shake them out, and put your mold into the fridge. First thing we're going to do, we need to weigh out sugar, 55 grams of sugar for 2 souffles. And the mix here will be weighed out for you already. But that is 65 grams. If you want to make another one, maybe you want to make a fruit one yourself or a different flavor. So we need 3 eggs, the whites of 3 eggs into a mixing bowl. I'm just going to separate the eggs. It's very important we do not get any egg yolk into the egg white. So here is a method. I'm just going to separate the eggs. So you just crack the center, you pull them in half, the white will come out, and then you can put the yolk into the other part of the egg. Okay, that's that. Right. If you have an electric whisk, I would advise that you use it. Or if you have a KitchenAid, that would be very nice as well. But I'm going to whisk it by hand because this is all I have. If you haven't got one of these, you could even use a fork. But it might hurt your arm a little bit. Okay, so here we go. So we're just feeding the air into the egg white. So what I need to do is slowly add this sugar. If I had an electric whisk, I would slowly add all the sugar at the same time. But obviously I'm doing it by whisk. So I'm just going to add a little bit at a time, stop, and then keep going. So you can see when the meringue is nearly ready, because you'll start to see like a shine on it. You can see it shining in the light. I'm going to add a bit more sugar again. So one very important thing as well, if you are using an electric whisk or a machine to make your meringue, make sure your egg white is not splitting. So as you can see, the egg white is all together, it's not broken apart. If it has broken apart, I would strongly advise you start again. You're just looking for a nice soft whipped meringue. So what causes it to split apart is if you've over whisked it. It would look like separated egg white. It would be clearly visible. Okay. So I'm happy with the meringue. Silky smooth. Was nice and easy on my arm. No trouble. Okay, now we're going to slowly mix in our prune and armagnac mix. So the trick here is to mix a bit of meringue into here, and then we're going to add that back into here. So you should actually mix it in 3 separate. So first mix is like this. I'm just using a coffee cup. I'm sure you have a nice bowl at home. Cool. Right, so this is going to mix. I'm going to do it in the corner of the bowl because I don't want to mix it all at the same time. So the reason we don't mix it all at the same time is because if we mix it all in the first place, we're going to lose the air from the meringue and it's not going to rise. So we mix it slowly. We slowly fold it in. If you use a whisk, you could also risk knocking the air out of the meringue. So it's just about slowly folding it. You can use a wooden spoon or you can just use a normal spoon, but you mustn't smash it about too much. You need to keep all that air in there. And you just mix it enough that you can not see the white anymore. So this is nearly there. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it like that. Okay, now we need to get our soufflé molds, which are in the fridge, and we're going to fill them up. So, with the meringue mix, I'm just going to use a spoon. Slowly go in both. You do not want to fill it all at the same time, as you will have some air gaps in your soufflé, which you'll see when you cook it. So when we get to this stage, there's meringue all over me, I'm just making sure that you're pushing it all into the side. And then we add a bit more. Again, pushing it to the side. And then the final part we are going to do with a little spatula. If you don't have a little spatula, you can use a knife. So what we're going to do, we're going to just hold it in our hands, push in, and go around and push in. Once you have gone all around and pushed all in, we're just going to scoop it off like that. This is not actually long enough, so I'm going to get something longer. There's a bigger one, or you could use a bigger knife. Okay, so just clean the outside with your finger. Make sure it's nice and clean, which this is not. And then again, with your thumb, just stick your thumb in the side and kind of make a little indent. Right, it's time to put the soufflés into the oven. So I'm a little bit nervous. I'm always a little bit nervous because not all the soufflés actually rise. I've no idea why. That's the way it is. So what we're looking for is around that to rise nice and flat, around 5 centimeters high. I'm going to go in my oven at 200 degrees, full fan for 9 to 10 minutes. But it's nice if you have a light in your oven, you can keep an eye on it. And if you see it's about that high and you've had it in for more than 8 minutes, then I think you're ready to go. Okay, so soufflés come out all right. It would be nice to have a little bit of cocoa powder on there, or some icing sugar, some nuts as I mentioned earlier. I'll leave that one up to you. You could even put a little bit of grated chocolate on there. So, just fresh, there you go. Just going to get that onto a spoon, like that. Some lime zest on there. Serve that on the side. So when you get to the table, this goes straight into the middle. Okay, there we have it. Prune and Armagnac souffle, creme fraiche and lime. amazing for this time of year. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for buying my Banquist. I'm very excited to see all your pictures, and have a great day.
What are your desert island crisps?
Worcester sauce.
With what dip and what drink?
Salsa and Ribena.
Okay. What would be your death row meal?
Sunday roast.
Sunday roast with all the trimmings?
Absolutely.
Favourite restaurant in the world? Can't be your own.
A salad de crème roca.
Where's that?
Spain.
Cool. 3 dinner party guests, dead or alive?
Winston Churchill, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and The Rock.
You've got enough space around your dinner table.
And your least favourite food?
Marmite.